มีครับท่าน
At the end of the day, the affirmative team is the only team that solves the fact of the upstream and downstream industries. We're the only team that provides balance for both sides of the economy. If this is better than the status quo. We solve for the economy and we help the economy. We help our downstream and our upstream industries. This is what I want you to keep in mind in today's debate round. We're the only team that solves for the fact of the upstream and downstream industries. The current mindset of the negative team right now is that the upstream is foundational, so we should only keep the upstream. But the fact of the matter is we can have both if we pass the affirmative team's plan. We can support our upstream and our downstream industries with the affirmative team's plan by giving both of them legal standing. With that in mind, I'm just going to be going through the argumentation. But before I do, let's start with an observation point. You can tag as empirics versus none. Again, the observation point of empirics versus none. At the end of the day, the affirmative team is the only team that has proven that the downstream industries are being ignored right now. We're showing that there's a harm in the status quo. And we have seen through the saccharin example and through the steel example that our downstream industries are being ignored. But with that in mind, let's just go through the argumentation. Now I'm going to start with the disadvantages and then go through the 1AC. So let's start with the solvency point 1 of process stall. We're going to start with the second negative speaker. He had two responses, basically saying that there's legal standing and still have to wait. I'm going to have one response. You can tag as worth it. Again, that's worth it. At the end of the day, if we pass the affirmative team's plan, even if we have to wait, we won't have lost jobs, our economy will still be strong because we'll consider both sides and we'll have balance in the process. The empirics support the fact that we'll still have these jobs and we'll gain revenue in the process of this. So we see that even it's still worth it to wait for our upstream and our downstream industries. Let's go down to the disadvantage 1 of innovation. There is basically one response of legal standing, basically saying how we'll only have legal standing for our downstream industries. I'm going to have one response. This is responding to the disadvantage 1 of innovation. You can tag as considering imposing tariffs. Again, that's considering imposing tariffs. Now I'm going to mention this a lot in my speech. What we're going to be doing, our mandate states that we're going to be giving them legal standing when considering imposing anti-dumping duties. We're going to be considering them when we need to. We're going to be giving them legal standing when we have to look at if another country is dumping. We're going to be seeing both sides of the story by looking at our upstream and our downstream industry. So they will have legal standing, but we'll give legal standing when we're imposing anti-dumping duties or tariffs. Let's go down to the disadvantage 2, saying that the upstream is not hurt. Basically saying that it's foundational. I'm going to have two responses. My first response is flip side. Again, that's flip side. Without our downstream industries, and if we only had upstream industries, we'll only have raw materials. Now, people like you and consumers like you, we don't just go out and buy raw materials. Without our downstream industries, without complete products, the upstream industry is worthless. So they go hand in hand. Without raw materials, we don't have complete products. And without complete products, we don't have revenue for our consumers. They go hand in hand, and we need both. We need to consider both. Let's go down to the disadvantage 3 of a trade war, basically saying we'll have a trade war if we give them legal standing. And I have two responses. My first response is non-unique. Again, that's non-unique. We have trade wars right now. Sure, they're not that great, but we have them right now in the status quo. So it's not like they're rare, or it's not like they're not going to happen. They're right now in the status quo. But my second response is of a case-by-case. Again, that's a case-by-case. The fact of the matter is we're going to be doing what the status quo has not done. We're going to be looking at both sides. And that's going to help our trade in the process because we're able to consider whether to impose a tariff or not. Let's actually go down into the subpoint B of economy hurt in the 1AC. This is an on-case argument. He was basically saying that the upstream is foundational. Again, you can cross-apply my responses of a flip side and consider both sides. This was responding to the 1AC. So we've seen throughout all of these, arguments that the negative team's arguments do not stand. They can only solve for our upstream. But what can the affirmative team solve for? We can solve for our upstream and our downstream industries. We need to keep in mind that we need balance and we need justice for both sides of the economy, which is what the affirmative team can achieve. Thank you.
Starting negative prep time, we have 40 seconds left.
Yes, you do.